Do you guys remember what one of the very first rumors was for Nintendo Switch a little over a year ago? It had to do with a little known game called Resident Evil 7. So there was a rumor. Now at the time, the popularity of this rumor stemmed around the idea that Switch potentially could get virtual reality. And there were rumors swirling that several companies, including Capcom, were experimenting with virtual reality on Switch. Now, this was further sort of confirmed to be happening because there was a headset accessory patented by Nintendo that seemed to be for Switch, to essentially insert the Switch into a headset, you know, kind of like you would do with a phone, for some sort of virtual reality experience. Now, from what we know, and Nintendo has admitted to experimenting with it, we're not going to be seeing that headset in the lifetime, at least of the current Switch on the market. Now, there might be numerous reasons for that. Normally, if you're going to do the phone experience, you want a higher grade AMOLED panel, plus you would like a higher resolution, typically at least 4K if you really, really want that crispness from a phone versus, you know, a much better designed headset specifically for virtual reality, you know, like Oculus or the Vive. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is because all of these rumors around Resident Evil 7 coming to Switch were forever ago at this point, to the point that you would assume that any shot of Resident Evil 7 coming to Switch, it was pretty much dead the moment that virtual reality was dead on the platform. Well, not so fast. Resident Evil 7 is coming to Nintendo Switch in Japan. Let me get through this news because it's very interesting how this is being handled. So, what is coming to Switch is an announcement by Capcom of Resident Evil 7 cloud version for Switch, which is set to launch in Japan on May 24th. We are literally 3 days away at this point. And the download itself is only 45 megabytes because, as you guessed it, you're going to actually be streaming it to your Switch from a cloud service. Now, the cloud option does have all of the game's DLC, and you do get to play the game for 15 minutes at first, 100% for free. So essentially, you get to try it and then decide if you would like to buy what they call a ticket. A ticket is 2,000 yen, which equates to around $18 USD. Now, for $18 USD for one ticket, you do get 180 days of play, which is a lot because this game was a $60 game when it came out. And most people, I would figure, within that 180 days will be done with it. And then again, if you did want to play it in the future, you know, after those 180 days, you just have to buy another ticket. And so before you know it, you could get over a year on this game without having spent the original $60 price tag. So, I mean, I honestly think it's not too bad of a deal, especially since we're talking about a cloud service. So obviously you're going to have to pay, some sort of regular fee to be able to use that cloud service. Now, the Japanese version does not contain an English option. So even if you have a Japanese account, I'm sorry, you will not be able to play it in English. That doesn't mean you can't play it at all. Obviously, it's available in the Japanese language. If you can read and understand Japanese, or you don't mind Japanese, then maybe this version would be for you. Now, obviously, as a North American consumer, specifically the United States, Wisconsin, of all of those states, I would love to see this come to the West, because I really want to play Resident Evil 7, and the fact that we're talking about a cloud version essentially means that, one, it's going to have the highest possible specs, it's going to have 60 FPS, and obviously it'll display in 1080p, in docked mode, or 720p in undocked mode. And yes, you'll only be able to use it when you have a really good internet connection, which I happen to have at home. I have like 300 something down, which is more than enough to be streaming a video game like this on the highest possible settings at 1080p and 720p. So yes, this is very, very good in my opinion that this is even happening. And I wish it would come over here. Now, this does obviously bring up the bigger question of, would we rather have Resident Evil 7 on Switch as a physical cart and a digital download, fully running on Switch at lower specs and a lower frame rate, or would we prefer the version we are going to get, which is the cloud version? And this brings in the whole conversation about cloud gaming versus, owned digital or owned retail copies. And I think the answer to that is complicated. I feel like all of the above is really the best way to go about it. Like if we would get it natively on Switch, plus get an option for the cloud version. I think that is the best way to approach it. But I also think that Capcom really wants to promote their cloud version of games, because I feel like Capcom feels that might be the future of video games. Instead of selling you a $60 product day one, they can give you, a little bit of free play on it and then charge you a price that you're going to have to pay again and again and again over time to continue to play it. And ultimately, that might even be good for certain consumers that are always playing at home or always playing near a high-speed internet connection, because you don't have to pay full price for a game, and if you're done with it after a few weeks, guess what? You're done with it. You don't have to pay, another $40 like you would have to for a $60 package product plus the cost of DLC. So I feel like this is very, very good for them. They obviously would make more of their money on players that continue to pay for it long haul and buy multiple tickets. But yeah, I think this is very interesting, and I really want to see what you guys think about it, because I'm all for cloud gaming. I see nothing wrong with cloud gaming. We know Microsoft has been preaching it forever. Apparently, Crackdown 3 is supposed to use some crazy stuff on the cloud for its physics. So you have some stuff happening locally on the system, the rest happening on their cloud servers. But this is a game running completely on the cloud. We've seen this before. I believe PlayStation actually does the game streaming thing. So they're not, Capcom's not the first company to do it. Game On back in the day used to do it. Or was it On Game? I forget the name of it. I used to actually do game rentals where you would pay, like a Netflix-like subscription, and then you get access to a bunch of games and you could stream them. So at this point, I feel that I'm just happy we're getting the game at all, and I want to see this announced in the West. Obviously, I feel like this announcement for Japan is a test run. If it performs well in Japan, it'll then come to the West, and you bet your bottom dollar I'll be picking it up, especially since the first 15 minutes are free. Why the heck wouldn't I at least give it a try and see how well it performs on my internet at home, both in handheld and docked? But yeah, I want this to happen. It would obviously be the best looking game ever on Switch because, well, it's using computing power that is severely bigger than anything else on the market. It would be better looking than any version but the PC version at max settings. So yeah, I'm stoked about this kind of thing. But let me know what you guys think about this idea of cloud gaming and it coming to Switch. If you guys remember, there is a certain application releasing eventually on the platform that's actually going to allow us to stream games from our PCs to the Switch, and this is a very similar concept, except obviously you're not streaming the game from something that's already in your home. You're streaming it from servers that are, way off yonder. But still, I feel like this is a really interesting concept, especially when it comes to bringing games to Switch in a cheap way, because if you think about it, if more companies would decide to do game delivery on Switch this way, let's say they don't like the specs of the Switch, they don't want to develop for 2 different versions, they don't want to go do anything crazy, but they're like, you know what, we could do a cloud streaming thing where we bring the games to Switch for a cheaper price of entry for first-time players, but in return, you get the best possible version of the game. Obviously, this is limiting. Not every game should be delivered this way. I want all of the above, but I do think it's a very interesting prospect for companies that maybe don't want to invest the money to bring over a full Switch version, but could bring over a streaming version. So yeah, I think this is actually the very first streaming game coming to the platform. So we'll see how it performs. I know some of you guys out there are going to mention that Switch has absolute garbage internet, and I disagree. I think there is one aspect that is garbage. That is the fact that the USB 3.0 ports on the back of the Switch are not actually running at 3.0 speeds, even though they can. I don't know why that hasn't been unlocked in the firmware yet. So when you do plug your USB dongle into your Switch, you are running at USB 2.0 speeds. And this is important because even though you are hardwired in, USB 2.0 speeds are capped. They are capped at way lower than probably your actual internet speed. Therefore, if you have a solid wireless connection, your wireless connection speed is actually going to be faster than directly plugging in. Just a fun little fact out there. And for people who talk about how their Switch has a hard time connecting to Wi-Fi, or gets like you can be right next to the router and still get a bad signal. If you're right next to the router and getting a bad signal, there's a couple things that might be happening. One, the wireless card in your Switch and the wireless card on your router might not be fully compatible. I can't tell you why that's the case. I just know that is the case. I can tell you right now, at home, I use Google Home Wi-Fi. My Switch is fully compatible with that. I can go 40 feet out into my yard and still have 3 bars of connection on my Switch, and I've never had a connection issue at all with that particular router. So if you're looking for a router that maybe works well with Switch, I can definitely suggest that one, because when I see people complain about this, and then I use my Switch on Wi-Fi at home all the time without issue, I'm like, what are they talking about? I'm getting my full speeds on my Switch anywhere in my home. I don't really have an issue with that. So there also could be the other reason, of course, is wireless interference. That means too many wireless devices in your house are interfering with the signal, and maybe the signal from, the signal receiver from the Switch isn't exactly the best. So if the signal is a little bit interrupted, but again, if you're right next to the wireless router, that really shouldn't be an issue. That's why I say I think it has more to do with compatibility. Like, it'll still work on the network, but it's not really the best network for the Switch. And unfortunately, they don't really give you any advice on the official Nintendo website to tell hey, these are officially supported routers, be sure you get one of these. I can just tell you, Google Home, you can get it right at Walmart. It works just fine. It's not that expensive. And what's even better about Google Home is you can buy like little extender hubs and just keep extending it all over your house if you happen to have a big house. And it's all compatible, and you can manage everything on your phone, which I find highly convenient because you can see every device. You can kick devices off. You can change passwords. You can do everything from your phone, even if you're not at home, which is awesome. It means you have 100% control of your network basically at all times, as long as any sort of device on you has internet access. Anyways, folks, that's going to wrap it up for today's video. Let me know what you think about all this down in the comments below. I am Nathaniel Rumpeljans from Nintendo Prime, and I will catch you guys in the next one.